Trinidad folklore is out there. It is alive and present. Whether you believe in the folklore or not is not the question, but the attributes and the message of the folklore is out there. It is if we are so inclined as a society to absorb this information.
Welcome back to Conservation Connected, everyone. I'm so glad to have you join me again for yet another video in my Conversations About Conservation series. In today's video, I will be interviewing a very good friend of mine as well as a work colleague who I've worked with over the past year. He is an ecologist as well as having done work all throughout Trinidad and Tobago and traveled internationally to give talks. And I'm so excited to have this interview with him, which is focused on Trinidad folklore. So Trinidad just came out of Carnival season, one of our biggest cultural events of the year. And if you haven't experienced it, I highly recommend that you come here and experience it. It is definitely something that is a once in a lifetime experience. Trinidad is filled with so much culture. It's a deep and rich culture that it has influences from India, Africa, as well as Europe, including our folklore. So in this video, I want to go through a bit of Trinidad folklore and of course, keeping with our normal theme, how these folklores teach us how to interact with the environment as well as to maintain a sustainable lifestyle. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this little interview I took with Dr. Ryan S. Mohammed about Trinidad folklore and its impacts on the environment.
My name is Dr. Ryan Mohammed. I'm an aquatic research biologist at Auburn University. In Trinidad right now doing a postdoctoral research fellowship on ecology in riverine systems, northern range. All right, so Trinidad folklore stems from multiple sources, and there's a lot of similarity with Trinidad and Tobago's folklore with neighboring islands, with South America, but also because Trinidad has such a wide diaspora and influences coming out of Africa and India and Europe, we have influences from all of these places in our folklore, right? So we have several influences from Europe, Africa, and India. And you see it in the name, Mama de Glo, Papa Boat, or Duens, all of those are French names, but the influences is African and Indian, as well as our First Peoples. These stories have been passed down from generation to generation, and every generation has its own take on it, and they vary from village to village as well. So what you might hear of folklore in Tobago is very different from folklore in Trinidad. Folklore in South Trinidad, for instance, things like sukunya, the flying ball of fire, is very common around South Trinidad, especially areas where it had a lot of sugarcane estates, etc. You would seldom hear about some of these stories from North Trinidad. So they vary from village to village, and they vary in origin. A lot of these places, again, it was based on who settled in these places. In South Trinidad, you had more East Indian settling because of the sugarcane industry. So a lot of the influences probably would have come from um, stemming from Hindu backgrounds, because you have things like the Phantom and the Phantom Pundits, etc., things like that, which again have connections to Hindu mythology, Hindu religion rather, not mythology. So folklore is adaptive. It's based on what the general population influences are, but to say what the origins are, that's hard to pin down. So Papa Boa and Mama Flo is probably the two that would have the most connection to our environment. Now you have things like Lagahu and Sukunya. So Sukunya, she was the flying the ball of fire that's supposed to be an old woman in the village that would change her skin, be a ball of fire flying in the night. She requires something like a blood meal to survive, and that's how she maintains not dying her immortality. The Lagahu He would be someone that would be dragging chains at night, and then you hear stories of him being a protector of certain areas. But again, it's with a trade. He wants a trade off. The Laja Bless, another one with French origins, very colonial past there. She was the one that would try to influence um, farmers, the sailors, etc., especially in rural communities. So all of these stem around the culture that was uh, the culture of the era. The connection with environment, I would say Papa Bo and Mama Glow had the biggest connection. Papa Bo being that protector of the forest. He's the one that would seek the interests of the wildlife. He was the one that would seek the interests of the forest itself, the trees, the ecosystem. He would be the one that would I would go as far as say attack hunters that he felt was providing some injustice to the ecosystem. In some ways, Papa Ba would feel that the hunters, when they are advantage, providing some unfair advantage to themselves, either by taking too much or whatever means they were using to hunt. That's when you would usually hear Papa Boy invoking his powers, and his powers might be, you know, almost like a trickster where he would remove the guns or remove the bullets or things like that. Or something might be something more voracious. Papa Boy would present himself as this very tall forest creature that would, well, basically terrify the hunters. All right. Mama Glow, she had a particular affinity for the water. All right. It is not surprising that Trinidad has is home to one of the largest snakes on the planet, the anaconda. So there is that connection between what we have as wildlife here and what is portrayed in the mythology, in the folklore. So Mama de Cloche, again, she would be the one that would want to take care of the rivers. Take care of the rivers in the sense of taking too much water out of rivers, contaminating rivers, or even the river creatures. So there are stories of people, particularly males, seeing this woman on the bank of a river, and a very beautiful woman combing her hair. She's usually portrayed as a naked woman, but she would usually target males that were doing something to negatively impact on the river. Usually, what the common trait in all of these stories is from waist down, she's a serpent. Okay, usually anaconda, and this is where she would wrap coils around the the arbitrators of whatever she deemed that was environmental crime against the river, and she would submerge them, drown them in the river. All right, and this was this was the folklore way of dealing with poor environmental practices. So there are a wide range of means that these things could continue to get passed down. One is listen to your elders. Okay, young people still need to recognize that the old people still have wisdom, and we still need to listen to them. So that's the most basic way. Make that connection with your roots. The second thing is, so there are books out there with this information and the varying stories, particular. And the interesting things about these stories that portrayed in these books, they are not the same stories. Papa Boa might be a character in the story, okay? But the gist of the story is still environmental well-being. Okay, so Mama Glow or the Dwen, so Sukunya, they are characters in these stories. All right, it is not a cliche story like Three Little Pigs and with the same end theme, and you know the big bad wolf huff and blow the house down. It's not the same story. It's always different stories with the same character. Okay. The other avenue for these things is some animators have opted to create comic books, the animated novels, graphic novels, etc. There are some small filmmakers that also still continue to make short films, short movies. I think there was a movie about Dwayne's a while back. I would say the probably most recent and continuous way to see folklore is in our art and in our performing arts. You still see local artists doing handiwork, doing craft, doing sculptures, portraying these things. When the National Art Museum and Gallery was open, they had several pieces on Trinidad folklore. Carnival Monday is usually a good time to see aspects of Trinidad folklore in action as well.
Yeah.
So folklore stems a lot in culture. Okay. However, what we've seen in recent times is that culture is soon becoming an excuse for all our bad habits.
Yes.
We want to eat turtles because it is our culture to eat turtles. We need to stop finding excuses for the way we behave and blaming it on culture. Because the fact is, our old culture actually was more sustainable than what we practice now.
Yes.
So we need to stop saying using culture as an excuse for bad habits and find the positive attributes of our culture and the sustainable practices of our culture and go back to that.